What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing by far the most fun Pokemon I've used so far this season, the original Boombird Shadow Honchkrow in the Open Great League. Now if you're a long-term viewer of the channel, you'll probably recall the nuke combinations I made with this Pokemon back in the day. Unfortunately, over the past few years, Shadow Honchkrow really fell off, but I can now confirm this Pokemon is absolutely back, and it's better than it ever was before, as you might have seen from the intro to this video. Now this team combines two very common ABB style teams with Poison Double Dark and Ground Double Flying, with Shadow Nidoqueen in the lead, Shadow Murkrow as that safe swap, and Shadow Honchkrow as the closer. As well as being the most fun team I've used this season, this was actually also the best team I've used in terms of win percentage, and was surprisingly very good even when I lost the lead. With that being said, let's just get straight into the question of the day. What would you consider to be the most iconic ABB style team? This can be specific Pokemon, or it can just be dual type combinations, but let me know in the comment section down below. And with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Nidoqueen into Dusclops. I'm actually going to safe swap into my Murkrow straight away, and the opponent is going to hard punish me with Morpeko. Morpeko going to resist everything I can possibly throw. However, Shadow Murkrow just doesn't care about that. That Drill Peck does huge damage. They also throw just a Psychic Fangs. That is a very questionable decision there. I'm going to no shield, and I'm actually able to reach a second charge with either grabbing a shield advantage or just taking out Morpeko and flipping switch advantage. However, I am going to give up switch advantage straight away, not allowing a full farm down, baiting out Azumarill, which is not ideal, but I'm actually going to full send the Brave Bird, and the opponent does not respect the damage. And right off the bat, we get the nuke, and at this point, this game is now over. They fire off a Fire Punch there, so not actually on Ice Punch, which means I don't need to shield this. I'm gonna let the Shadow Punch go through. At this point, we can just commit to a Poison Fang and then go for a full Mud Slap farm down. Poison Fang, expecting to grab a shield, it does grab that shield there. It's gonna drop the defense, and now, of course, I can just safely double shield if they are gonna throw two more times. And the opponent, unfortunately for them, we can just shield this. Mud Slap will be registering. It will take out the Dusclops, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there into the next battle to see Shadow Nidoqueen into Altaria. So, not a great lead matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping into Shadow Murkrow. And Murkrow, despite being slightly behind on energy, is able to outpace them to the first charge move. Drill Peck is actually going to be shielded by the opponent. I'm expecting with a Altaria in the lead, they've probably got Empoleon in the back. I'm waiting for that swap, and they do eventually swap into it. Of course, we're now going to throw the Foul Play. Foul Play is going to grab the final shield, and we reach yet another Foul Play before they can farm me down. Foul Play gets them incredibly low. I tried to snipe with a Mud Slap there, but honestly, should have just let the Murkrow go down. Of course, I just fully sacrificed the Nidoqueen, expecting it might be a Mud Slapper in the back. So we're going to come in with the Shadow Honchkrow. They come back in with Altaria. They will outpace me to this charge move. So at this point, I'm of course gonna use my final shield, waiting for a potential swap and try and catch on from the opponent's end there, but we can now overfarm massively. Brave Bird gets that one shot. We swap out into Murkrow just to clear the debuff there. Now we can come back in. I could have thrown the Brave Bird, but either way, Dark Pulse will be enough to take out Altaria from that range, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there into the next battle to see Shadow Nidoqueen into a Gastrodon. So, not a great lead matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping, and unfortunately met with a Togekiss. However, we are ahead on energy, and of course, we don't expect any fairy type moves from the opponent. Of course, Pecks are hitting for neutral damage. They're doing slightly more damage than we're doing to them, just because we are very attack weighted. However, we might still reach back-to-back Drill Pecks here. We are going to go for the first one. Drill Peck is actually going to grab the final shield. So at this point, you know what? I'm happy to take that shield advantage. I've put them into range with 5 more Pecks from the Shadow Honchkrow, gets the perfect farm down there, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. The opponent's waiting out the switch clock. They're going to come in with a Charizard. I'm going to overfarm just slightly, fire off the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse gets the one shot, and we've already seen in the previous battle, we can very comfortably nuke a Gastrodon with the Brave Bird. Going to use my final shield here. Going to go straight for that Brave Bird. I do not need to overfarm from this range. Brave Bird gets that one shot, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You see Shadow Nidoqueen into Shadow Kanto Marowak. So once again, not a great lead matchup for the Nidoqueen. We're going to be swapping into Murkrow, and unfortunately met with a Dugong. Going to go and fire off the Drill Peck just before they do reach an Icy Wind. The opponent actually looking to commit to a full farm down here. This is going to allow me to reach a second Drill Peck. Drill Peck does big damage. And again, I think we're just going to fully sacrifice the Nidoqueen, take that shield advantage, and hope that Shadow Honchkrow can sweep in the end game. Icy Wind does big damage there. A second one will get the KO, but we don't really care. We've actually put them into range where we don't even have to take a single Ice Shard's worth of damage onto our Honchkrow. They come back in with that Shadow Kanto Marowak. They will outpace me to the charge move here. They're probably going to bait with a Bone Club, and they do exactly that. But that's okay. I'm now going to overfarm here. They come back in with a Marowak. Potentially, they don't have an answer in the back, but Dark Pulse is going to be no-shielded, and unfortunately, that is not the case. They've got Blastoise, and whilst, yes, Rollout's not the hardest hitting move, Shadow Honchkrow has very little defense, and unfortunately, we just barely miss out on reaching a second Dark Pulse to get the KO there, and unfortunately, we do finally lose a game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see a Shadow Primeape in the lead. So a positive lead matchup for me, especially since they don't even farm to a potential Ice Punch. I'm going to no-shield this. I'm going to go for that Poison Fang straight away. Expect to grab a shield. And then I'm actually going to swap straight away into Shadow Murkrow, dealing huge damage with these pecks. This is just going to be another Rage Fist. They are boosted, but it is resisted damage. So I'm going to no-shield that. They come in with a Mandibuzz before swapping straight away into Credilli. That is an interesting decision there. Not really sure why they went for that, but either way, we're going to go and fire off back-to-back Drill Pecks. First one grabs the final shield, second one is going to connect. It does big damage, and they do overfarm here, but they've put themselves into range where 3 pecks from Shadow Honchkrow will get that perfect farm down, and once again, all shields are down on the opponent's end. And actually, I do not need to shield this, so I'm going to go for a 2-shield flex. Aerial Ace does actually do quite a lot of damage there, but speaking of a lot of damage, we're full sending Brave Bird, and once again, it gets the one shot up against the bulky Mandibuzz, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You see a Shadow Empoleon in the lead. So, a great lead matchup for me. You can see Mud Slaps absolutely shredding through their HP. Of course, I'm going to have to use a shield here, but the opponent's going to swap into their own Mud Slap user. We're going to come in straight away with that Shadow Murkrow, fire off the Drill Peck before they get to our Rock Side, and Drill Peck is going to grab the first shield from the opponent. At this point, I'm going to shield even if they do bait. I should just barely outpace them to the next charge move, but because they full send, I'm going to look to throw on CMP here. Drill Peck will get the KO or grab the final shield, and it does grab that final shield. At this one, of course, Murkrow will be going down to the Rock Side, but once again, I've put them into perfect farm down range for that Shadow Honchkrow. And let's see, the opponent's going to come in with Altaria, and Altaria is a very bulky flying type Pokemon, but it just doesn't matter. Brave Bird gets that one shot. Once again, we can just Mud Stab, farm down the Empoleon, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Nidoqueen once again losing a lead matchup here, but we're going to swap into Murkrow. Unfortunately met with a Unnovan Stunfisk this time around, so unlike last time up against Morpeko, we could deal big damage. Actually, never mind, I was going to say, we can't really do much here, but we end up grabbing a shield advantage. We're definitely going to take that. However, unfortunately, this is quite awkward for us. Of course, an electric type Pokemon, but they do have Mud Bomb. They are a part ground type Pokemon, so we're quite slow to get to the Earth Powers here. They will get a shield back from the Shadow Nidoqueen, which isn't really ideal. I need Shadow Honchkrow to have an advantage to sweep in the end game, but we're going to farm a Poison Fang, recognizing it won't get the KO, but I can now farm them down. They come back in with the Gastrodon, and unfortunately met with Togekiss. With our Murkrow, it's actually a decent matchup, especially slightly ahead on energy. However, with the Honchkrow, it is slower to get to the charge moves. That is where you do need that shield advantage, and unfortunately, Dark Pulse is going to be shielded. They can just go for another charge move. From this range, of course, Aura Sphere gets the KO. I am waiting for the opponent to try and make a catch here, which is why I go for the Earth Power. But either way, Earth Power wouldn't have got the KO up against the Gastrodon from that range anyways. And unfortunately, one Mud Slap gets the farm down, and we do lose that game. But into the next battle, yet another Gastrodon in the lead. GG's to that previous opponent, by the way. We are going to see the opponent's going to come in with a Clodsire, and we are so far ahead on energy. Even if they're on Stone Edge, it doesn't really matter. Drill Peck does huge damage. A second Drill Peck should be grabbing a shield from the opponent, and Drill Peck is going to do exactly that. At this point, I'm actually going to shield this because I can reach yet another Drill Peck. Even if they're on Sludge Bomb, they will be outpaced. But actually, you know what? I'm going to catch the next Sludge Bomb onto my Nidoqueen, force the opponent to swap back into their Gastrodon, and they are going to throw straight away. If they full send a Water Pulse here, it will get the KO, but now we can come back in with our Shadow Murkrow. I don't want to reveal the Honchkrow just yet. We can now overfarm massively and farm up to back-to-back Drill Pecks before firing off the first charge move. Drill Peck gets the KO from that range. They're going to come in with a Blastoise, so we are firing off the next Drill Peck. Drill Peck grabs the final shield. It's a Shadow Blastoise, so they are dealing big damage with the rollouts, but all I need to do here is make sure the opponent does not make a catch onto the Clodsire. We can now overfarm. They will reach a Sludge Bomb fairly soon, so I'm going to fire off the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse gets the KO there, and we can just go for another Dark Pulse into Shadow Blastoise coming back in, and from this range, it gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Nidoqueen into a Shadow Victory Bell. So, this is going to be an interesting situation. I assumed they'd be on Acid, so I stayed in initially. But no, they're actually on Razor Leaf, so we do swap out eventually into Shadow Murkrow. They're going to come in with a Shadow Typhlosion, but if they commit to a farm down, Murkrow just barely hanging on by a slither of HP, reaching back-to-back charge moves. And they've got 80 energy here, so they're actually not going to reach a Blast Burn and a Thunder Punch, so I can just safely shoot up the first move here. If they do bait with a Thunder Punch, worst case scenario, they get off another Thunder Punch, but actually the opponent is just going to allow me to fully farm them down there, and the opponent's going to come in with their final Pokemon, a Shadow Talonflame. We are taking huge damage here, but the opponent, interesting play there, not throwing a charge move, instead Dark Pulse gets the one shot, and that's going to be game over. We are one away from the Poison Fang. Of course, from this range, Poison Fang will be enough damage to take out Shadow Victory Bell, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Nidoqueen into Altaria. So, once again, not a great lead matchup for the Nidoqueen, but it doesn't matter. We're going to be swapping into our Murkrow, and again, the opponent's going to swap out into a bulky Poison-type Pokemon. However, we've got back-to-back Drill Pecks already, so the first one does huge damage. The second one should, once again, grab a shield advantage, and we do throw on CMP. So, at this point, I am just going to no-shield this. Brian does get the KO. We've put them into range, but I think I can Mud Slap farm them all the way down. So the opponent is actually going to preserve some HP, but they swap into Steelix. Now, most Shadow Nidoqueen at the moment are running Stone Edge, which means Earth Power is not respected. It gets the KO. And at this point, we're looking to be in a great position. We can shield here. I'm now going to fire off a Poison Fang. Poison Fang might actually grab a shield if the opponent expects double nukes. Nope, it does not get shielded, but either way, it doesn't really matter. We can come in with the Shadow Honchkrow, and I believe Toxapex is 2 away from the next charge move. So they swap back into the Toxapex, and I can throw on the CMP tie. Winning CMP, Dark Pulse grabs the final shield here. They will be able to take out the Honchkrow, but it doesn't matter. We can come back in with the Shadow Nidoqueen, and we can outpace the Altaria to the next Poison Fang, and of course, very minimal HP. Poison Fang from this range will take out Altaria, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Nidoqueen into Rufflet. So, this is, again, not a great matchup for me. Nidoqueen just cannot buy a win right now in that lead matchup. But we swap into Murkrow. Unfortunately, met with a Charm Darkspawn. And unfortunately, they can actually tank a Drill Peck and fully Charm Farm me down. Now, of course, Psychic Fang's not going to do too much damage here, but we put them into range, but we don't really get a huge farm down either, which is not ideal. We get 2 Mud Slaps off, they come back in with the Rufflet, and unfortunately, they will outpace me to the charge move here. Now, the opponent doesn't know that I don't have Stone Edge, so we'll be farming at least to the Stone Edge before baiting with the Poison Fang. Poison Fang is going to be shielded. We swap into our Shadow Honchkrow, and unfortunately, once again, getting outpaced to the charge move here. we can shield up the X-Scissor. X-Scissor is neutral damage, but it would very easily take us out from that range. And at this point, the opponent can recognize they can just no-shield this. They can come back in with the Rufflet. They can commit to a full farm down, and there's not a lot I can do. They use their final shield there. Nidoqueen is not going to reach another charge move. Even if we did, Poison Fang would not get the KO from that range. Fly definitely takes us out, though, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG to opponent there into the next battle, and what a surprise, we end up losing yet another lead. I mean, to be honest, like, it does make a lot of sense. At the moment, there are a lot of flying types, and there are a lot of mud slappers, and unfortunately, Nidoqueen is a mud slapper that loses to other mud slappers. So, yeah, not a lot of targets for it, but this ABB style team is still very strong, so we are fighting back in a lot of these matchups. Anyways, they're going to come in with a Party Hat Blastoise, and we can reach another charge move. I thought they'd throw on CMP. That is not the case, but they actually just don't throw a charge move at all. So we're now going to swap back into Nidoqueen. You might be thinking, why the heck are you doing this? Well, I'm actually just going to fully sacrifice the Nidoqueen here. I'll put them into range where 2 picks gets the KO. So if they do try and go for 1 extra Mud Slap, we can fully farm them all the way down, get a slight energy advantage with the Haunch Crow, and that energy advantage is going to be huge for me because now I will be able to reach back-to-back charge moves before the opponent does get to back-to-back Rock Tombs. We throw the first one on the CMP tie here, and I do not need to clear any debuffs this time around, as even with a debuff to our attack, it does not matter, as Brave Bird hits so hard, it will be getting the one-shot up against Cradilly, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You see Shadow Nidoqueen into yet another bad lead. We're swapping into Murkrow, and the opponent's going to respond with a Shadow Empoleon. So, going to look to throw here at the last possible second, firing off the Foul Play. Foul Play is going to be shielded. And at this point, I can possibly reach 2 more foul plays before they fully farm me down. So we are going to do exactly that. This time, I don't look to throw on CMP. Instead, throwing slightly earlier here, maybe looking to throw off the count from the opponent. And it works perfectly as we get to yet another foul play. We flip switch advantage. We get the KO there. And we don't give too much farm to the Oranguru either. At this point, of course, Shadow Haunch-Crow should be resisting all charge moves from the Oranguru. The opponent swaps into a shiny Shadow Salamence. So again, Nidoqueen just doesn't have much luck here, but Dark Pulse gets the KO. We can tank a charge move, so I'm going to no-shield this as the opponent does go for Trailblaze. We now swap into Shadow Nidoqueen, and this time we will be shielding. Trailblaze probably wouldn't quite get the KO from this range, but either way, we're going to shield. We can now go for Poison Fang. They've got like 1 HP and a Dream, but Poison Fang gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Nidoqueen into a Fortress. So, if the opponent is going to be on Volt Switch, then that's a great lead matchup for me. The opponent's going to safe swap into Altaria, and honestly, I don't know why I'm firing off a Poison Fang here either. What I should have done is farm up to a potential Stone Age first, and then baited with that Poison Fang, or I should have just swapped out straight away into Murkrow. My thinking was, I wasn't entirely sure if Murkrow could win the 2-shield scenario and actually survive the Dragon Breath damage, but I think that probably would have been okay. But either way, they're going to come back in with the Fortress. We go for Drill Peck. It does big damage, but they do get the Volt Switch farm down. And unfortunately, if they're on Earthquake here, this will get the KO, but I can't afford to shield this and leave Shadow Haunch-Crow all shields down. They do have a Gastrodon in the back, but unfortunately, we are down a shield. We're not going to be able to win this game here unless they no-shield for some reason, which they're not going to do. So at this point, there's no point shielding myself. Of course, even if they go for Body Slam, that does big damage still. They can just Mud Slap, farm down Shadow Haunch-Crow, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle, and a big surprise, we end up losing the lead again. We're going to swap into Shadow Murkrow here. We do throw 1 Mud Slap first, just because even with that Mud Slap, I can outpace the Talonflame to the charge move, but unfortunately, unless I get damage registration error here, they will be able to take me out with the next fast move. So at this point, we are just going to no-shield, take that shield advantage. We can come back in with the Shadow Nidoqueen, and I can actually reach another charge move before the opponent does throw. So at this point, Poison Fang, going to grab the final shield from the opponent. I'm kind of going to need to shield this, otherwise they will just deal too much damage with the Incinerate here, but we can snipe with the Shadow Hornscrow. Their next Pokemon is going to be a Licky, and we're going straight for Brave Bird. All shields are down, it gets the one shot, and once again they've got a Azumarill in the back, but we do have a slight energy advantage with our Shadow Nidoqueen. Well, not energy advantage, but we did have a little bit of residual energy there, so we can fire off the Poison Fang, and I will actually be able to reach a second Poison Fang before they get to back-to-back Ice Beams, and we will just be firing this off straight away as we get there on the CMP tie. Poison Fang number 2 gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Nidoqueen into a Kanto Ninetales. So, finally, a great lead matchup for us. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into a Credilli. Now, we don't have a great response, so I'm actually just going to stay in this matchup here. Of course, if the opponent does go and full send a Grass Knot, I'm still going to be able to tank it, and I am double resisting the fast move damage, so it's not the worst thing ever. And also, since they do go for Grass Knot, they're not going to debuff my attack, so I can go for Poison Fang here. Poison Fang is going to get the KO from that range, and let's see what they want to do. The opponent's going to come in with a Togekiss, so I'm actually going to swap into my Murkrow, which seems like a bit of a strange decision, but of course, they are going to resist the Mud Slap damage, well, double resist it actually, so we might as well come in with that Murkrow, bait out the Ninetales, fire off the Drill Peck. Drill Peck is going to be shielded, and the opponent ends up throwing on CMP, which is huge for me. Drill Peck, number 2, gets the final shield from the opponent, and at this point, I can let Murkrow go down. Now I'm going to come in with the Nidoqueen, just force him to throw their energy straight away. That's fine with me. We can now come back in with that Shadow Hornscrow. They will outpace me to the charge move quite significantly, but it doesn't really matter. At this point, we've now got residual energy. We can go straight for Brave Bird into Togekiss coming back in. Brave Bird obviously gets that one shot. One more peck, gets the farm down up against the Shadow Ninetales, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the final battle of this video, and yet again, losing the lead matchup, safe swapping into Shadow Murkrow, and again, looks like the opponent doesn't have a direct response, so I'm able to outpace them, fire off that Drill Peck straight away, and grab an early shield advantage. I'm going to use that shield straight away, however, as the opponent does fire off a bait with the Bone Club, but that's fine with me. I'm now going to look to fire off a Foul Play. I tried to throw on CMP, they do overfarm, but Foul Play, gonna be no shielded, it does big damage there. And at this point, this is probably their best answer to a flying type Pokemon, in which case I'm actually just gonna come in with that Shadow Hornscrow, get an energy advantage, and let's see what they want to do. The opponent comes in with their final Pokemon, a Galarian Corsola, and this game is absolutely over. We can fire off the Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse gets the one shot. They do not respect it. And at this point, of course, the opponent is going to fire for charge. Once again, probably going to bait with a Bone Club, and they do exactly that. So now, I'm actually going to swap into my Shadow Nidoqueen, force the opponent to throw their energy. At this point, they can't store back-to-back Bone Clubs just yet, which means we can come in, get the farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.